It's a sport of borders, boxes, and boundaries, tennis is. But once matches end, lines dissolve. The net no longer becomes a point of separation. Through the years, players have added their touches. In the modern era, we celebrate the celebration and the spontaneous ode to joy.
For the Grand Slam. That's it. Game, set, Federer.
And a truly wonderful victory for Martina.
And here he goes, up to the box, helped by the crowd.
We celebrate the celebrations here on TC Live. John Wertheim, Mary Carrillo. John, you wrote that piece. What's your favorite celebration of all time in our sport?
Oh, man, of all time. I got to say, when Nadal won that 9-7 match point, I'm a sucker for the 2008 Wimbledon final. I love when Yana Novotná won Wimbledon in 1998, and she just bowed down, kissed the grass, and what she said, she later admitted, she said, "Thank you for being good to me this year." She had a conversation with the grass before she went and shook her opponent's hand. But no, celebrations are they're unplanned. A lot of times they have a lot to do with context, but it's really interesting to me to see how different players celebrate under different conditions. Mary, what do you think? How about it?
Well, interestingly, John, my favorite iconic celebration is Bjorn Borg getting down on his knees at Wimbledon. And interestingly, when John McEnroe won Wimbledon against Borg and won his first Wimbledon title in '80, we showed it in your piece, he started to get down, and he told me afterwards he didn't want to copy Borg. So he pulled himself back up. But I remember the late, great Russ Adams. I used to sit with him in the photographer's pit. And that guy, there would be all different cameramen lined up trying to figure out all different lenses for the moment. And Russ said you had to know the players well enough to know if they were going to jump up in the air or if they were going to fall to their knees and hit the ground. And the really great tennis photographers didn't have to stay wide. They knew what that player was going to react like. And I loved sitting in the photographer's pit and watching these guys ply their craft like that.
Nothing like that pure, raw human emotion at the moment of triumph. All those years of hard work really paying off.
Steve, again, I have to tell you, one of my favorite moments is Andy Roddick when he won the U.S. Open in 2003. Remember when he grabbed his head?
Yeah.
And that is, I know he's coming up later in the show. That kid, he's 21 years old, and now he's one in the world. That, to me, is one of the great classic moments of a kid realizing his dream. A kid who used to go to the U.S. Open. Yeah, that one. He used to go to the U.S. Open and sneak down. When he was 9 years old on his birthday, his parents would take him down there, and he'd sneak down to the closest row he could get to the action. And then he was the center of attention. That's a classic.
Played video games with Pete Sampras in the Players' Lounge when he was like 9 or something like that. He's coming up top of the hour here on TC Live. John and Mary, I want to get both of your thoughts. I'll start with John here. We had Tim Henman on, board member at the All England Club, four-time Wimbledon semifinalist. When the thought of playing with no fans came up at Wimbledon, he said they would still need at least 5,000 personnel on site, and that's not possible. So when we think about the Australian Open next year, the U.S. Open this year, or any event with no fans, that type of number, John, is it even feasible?
It's a great question because we forget that. You say, oh, what's so hard about that? You get two players out there, maybe even call their own lines. Well, not really. There's a whole army of people behind the scenes. So even with no fans, you're talking about thousands of people. I think a lot of this just depends on the math. I think if we learned anything from the past few weeks, respect biology, respect chemistry and physics, respect math. And I think that if we're at a point where the numbers say it's favorable, maybe there's testing we can do. Maybe everyone, like they go through security checks with their bags. Maybe everyone gets their temperature taken. I mean, I think there are ways to deal with this, but I think it is something. It's very easy to say, hey, let's just have closed doors and throw up a few cameras and at least we get competition back. But especially two guys, remember, we're talking about 2 locker rooms for 256 players. So never mind all the staff, all of us in media and the officials and the transport and the whole infrastructure. Just the fact that you would have 128 players per locker room, I think ought to give us pause.
John, to your point, there's no vaccine. There's not even there's 350 million people in our country alone, and only a couple of million have been tested. The idea that we're still talking about playing without fans, I was going back and forth with Lindsay last night. Lindsay's got 4 kids, and they go to every kind of sporting event. They go to hockey games. They go to college football games. I said to Lindsay, would you take your 4 kids to a college football game this fall? I mean, I can't even imagine it. I'm just surprised that we continue to have a discussion when we still have no vaccine. I really pray that nothing dumb happens in our sport, which is the most international of any I can think of.
Yeah, one thing that we know for certain, John, we will not have the Rogers Cup on the women's side this year in Montreal. Government of Quebec says no events through at least August 31st. What does that mean? Could they play in Toronto with the men, or is it just done?
No.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting that it was interesting. You don't think so? I mean, it was interesting. It was a government decision, according to the press release, and not the event. But no, it's going to be hard. I mean, I think the U.S. Open is obviously the next domino that's got to make a decision. But again, Barry said it. I mean, one of the great virtues of this sport is the global cast. Unfortunately, that is completely inconsistent with, existing in this time of coronavirus. So I don't know if that event would want to do something at odds with what the government has ordered in the province. I can't imagine that if Quebec says yes, the neighboring province is going to say, as Quebec says no, the neighboring province is going to say yes. Look, we all want sport. We would like nothing more than for there to be first ball at top of the hour. I mean, we all want, this is one thing we can all agree upon in this fractured sport. We all want tennis. We would love for there to be a tournament to call tomorrow. I love Mary's backdrop, but not as much as I like 2 players on opposite sides of the net. That's what we would all rather, but health and safety must come first, with all due respect to Billie Jean King and her blue suede shoe.
And the Billie Jean King USA National Tennis Center is set up with 350 hospital beds right now. So that just underscores the fact that we got to stop talking about sports like it's right around the corner. It's just, especially the idea of having a whole bunch of people sitting around watching it, applauding it. I wrote something that I think is going to run later this week. It's what we miss most is that connectedness that we're all watching together. I mean, that to me is what I miss more than anything.
Yeah, sports give us hope. Sports bring us together as humans. John, before I let you go, why were you so mad at your AirPods?
Oh, I can't get this Bluetooth to work on this new computer, so I have these like 1999 wants their headphones back. I've got the old AirBuds. If anyone has tech tips, fire away.
All right, we'll work on that for tomorrow, John.
Very important, exactly.
All right, thanks as always for joining us. We will see you on Tuesday. There he is. He just can't figure it out. Can't get the Bluetooth. It's a Bluetooth issue. We had a little issue with Mary's Wi-Fi, but she fought through.